All right, friends, we're in a digital town hall meeting. I started recording a little bit late, but it's not too late. We're in breakout rooms talking about where we're seeing God's mission at work. And I'm bringing folks back right now. So we'll hear back from what people had to say. And then the rest of this will be recorded because I remembered to hit the record button. So here people come back from the breakout rooms. And we'll hear a little bit for a couple minutes how they saw God, how they're seeing God at work. Sheet and Helms are quick back in. They get the first back end prize. Mark is in second place, back in, and Drew and Kate come in third. Who will take the fourth place? Fourth place is still up for the award, the Titanium Award for fourth place. We're seeing who's going to come back in fourth place. Sheet and Helms got first. Mark Opperly got second. Oh, I think Nancy Dietrich came in fourth. Fourth, back into the main room. We have our podium now. Sheet and Helms took first place. Mark Opperly took second. Drew and Kate took third. And Nancy Dietrich took fourth place, coming back into the large room. All right. So I think everybody's back in now, I hope. We'll take just a couple minutes. If somebody wants to share something that they shared in their breakout room or that they heard share, feel free to just unmute yourself. And where do you see God at work, or what are you excited about right now, Sycamore Creek?
Okay. Well, Tom, I'm going to jump in on something that is I've been able to do as one who does a lot with the emergency funding.
Yeah.
Even though that we are not meeting in person, between Betsy and I, we've been able to meet a number of different needs. We've been able to reach out and help people who are struggling right now with all the effects of the COVID. So I see that as a positive.
That's awesome.
And then
yeah,
also,
and many of you have given extra for a specific COVID like emergency fund. Thank you.
And then also, just the fact that SCC has transitioned to the the digital world much more quickly than a lot of other churches have. Congregation has embraced it. People have been active, the small groups, everything.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the churches, the demographics we have has made it a lot simpler. And plus the fact the leadership had laid a great groundwork, a great foundation for moving to the digital instead of the in-person. So I give thanks for that. That's something that we really excelled at, I think.
How about somebody else?
I will share.
Okay.
I was in a room with Nancy Dietrich and Kathy Fox and Jordan Buxton, and we talked about how quickly we were able to switch gears from in-person to online. And I was sharing with them that some of us were able to switch faster than others. I was in a meeting on Friday afternoon when you said, "Oh, we're not meeting on Sunday." And I was like, "No, we are going to meet on Sunday." And you were like, "No, we're not." And I was like, "But yes, we are." And you were like, "No, we're not." And then I was like, "But we can still do church at a pub." And you were like, "No." And I was like, "Yes." And you were like, "No." And I was like, so you switched gears really fast. Good job. Mark too. Jeremy too. I was a little slow. But the other thing that we talked about was how like we've been able to incorporate a lot of different people into our worship services, which I think really continues our mission of reaching out to other people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where we see lots of faces on the screen from our church, but also we see lots of faces on the screen from outside our church.
Yeah, so one of those, Maggie Horner preached on Graduation Sunday, and she had a couple friends join us in worship. One of them was Clifford, and I was at Maggie's open house yesterday, trying to stay 6 feet apart from everybody with a mask on, and Clifford was there, and I got to meet him face to face, or mask to mask, for the first time. We met digitally, and then we met in person. It was really cool. Chrissy, it looks like you maybe unmuted yourself to say something.
Yeah. One thing that I had said in our group that we've really done over the last month is combining both campuses into one worship service. I really love being able to hear people that we don't normally get to hear. You know, it's a big haul to take the family all the way to Potterville for a Sunday morning worship. So like getting to hear Kevin sing when we normally, you know, just have Jeremy. Hearing Mark and Kathy speak when we don't normally have access, you know, to everybody there. But also just kind of feeling cohesive. Like it's not this campus, that campus. We are Sycamore Creek Church. We are all having the same Sunday morning experience. That's really been cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Chrissy. Who else wants to share? Oh, Mark. Mark, you.
I raised my hand. In my group, we celebrated having new partners join our church in the midst of the pandemic. Lori mentioned in our group how cool it was to see that we have people who are saying, I'm all in with Sycamore Creek, even in the midst of a pandemic, and how neat it was to have us come together with both campuses and new partners from both campuses.
And there were folks from Potterville that I'd never met before, except that day. That was really cool. Anybody else?
We shared in our group about celebrating continued anti-racism work during this time, as well as, you know, continuing your look at human sexuality and things like that in the church. So, and then just dittoing what everyone was saying about being proactive about going online.
Yeah. Sarah, I've especially appreciated your work with the Poor People's Campaign, which was a campaign that Martin Luther King Jr. started right before he was assassinated. And that the Reverend William Barber and Reverend Theo Harris, or am I getting that right? Theo Harris, have sort of re-kickstarted today. Who else? All right. Well, seeing nobody unmuting themselves, I'm going to kick it over to Chuck Bird, who has something to celebrate with us, some good news as far as our finances. So, Chuck, I don't immediately see you on the screen. I assume you're here somewhere. Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
There's so many faces, I can't immediately pick out the one. But yeah, I can hear you, Chuck. So give us a little rundown on how we're doing financially.
Well, hey, everyone. Thanks, Tom. Hey, everyone. Chuck Bird. Give you a quick update on finances, as Tom said, and it is positive. For those of you that don't know, we did file and received the PPP Payroll Protection Program loan that was offered through small business. We did that through DART, and a little plug for them. They were awesome to work with. That loan really helped us financially. Paid for payroll, it paid for utilities, and it paid for the interest on the mortgage of South Lansing building for 8 weeks. We're in the process of completing the paperwork to receive that loan as a gift, so we will not owe any of that money back. That combined with your generous and continued giving over while we're isolated at home, so to speak, has really put us in an excellent financial position. On average, due to less spending, lower utilities and other things, we're averaging about $27,000 in expenses a month. Yet we're bringing in about $30,000 a month in tithes and other income. So financially healthy. Congratulations. Praise the Lord. Thank you for your continued giving. For those that still want to send in checks, rest assured, I am personally coming into the office about every 2 weeks with another counter. We will make sure those checks are recorded and deposited properly. So please continue. If you prefer to send in a check, rest assured it will be handled appropriately. Other than that, electronic giving is also there. So again, thank you, everyone. And praise the Lord for our healthy financial position.
I'm going to add some color commentary to the to the play-by-play call there. We struggled a little bit at the end of or last year, and when we started this year, we were about $50,000 in the hole, and that's not entirely unusual, although the amount of it was bigger than we've seen in the past. Although we're still partly trying to discern. Our budget is bigger because we have 2 campuses. So how much bigger those how much bigger surpluses are, how much bigger less, I don't know what the opposite of surplus deficits are. We're still kind of getting a feel for that. But we have almost entirely dug ourselves out of the hole in this time period, which is pretty amazing. I mean, totally counterintuitive that in a pandemic, we would dig ourselves out of a deficit. And that's in large part because of your generosity. We also have had probably about 12 or 15 people give kind of unusually significant one-time gifts. Some people just gave their stimulus check. You can see that, just based on the numbers and how much those stimulus checks were. Several people have given for the first time or increased their giving, maybe another 10 people. And then maybe again, about another, 5 to 10 people redirected their capital campaign giving to the general fund. And I've been busy communicating with all those folks, but just more generally, if you're doing that, we don't need you to do that anymore. You can redirect that back to the capital campaign. And we're still making plans for eventually getting back into our buildings and continuing to invest in those. So I'd say woo woo, thank you, God, and woo woo, thank you to everybody else for your generous giving. And we encourage you to continue doing that, because all the things we celebrated happened because of that giving. So if you have questions about the finances, we'll get to those a little bit later on. In the town hall or in the Q&A section later on in the agenda at the end. Mark, you want to lead us off here into our breakouts about COVID?
Yes. So we're going to talk next about COVID and our response to all of that. And as we prepare for that, we wanted you to have a moment to talk in the breakout rooms again about how are you feeling about reopening. Where are you personally? We recognize that not everyone is on the same page with this or has the same circumstances. And part of the challenge that Tom and I have is, we sit in our houses and engage with each other, but we want to hear more broadly from other people. This is kind of a way of you giving input as we move forward with very tentative plans that we have that we'll talk about later on today in our meeting. So Tom is going to break us into our breakouts. And the question there is, how are you feeling about reopening? And we'll try to give you about 5 minutes for that.
All right, so here we go. You have to join your small group there. Let's see. Oh, I'm seeing. I got to assign some new people. Hey, Kay, let me put you in. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna put you in group 3. There you go. Stump Figs, I will put you in group 5. And Thomas, group 8. All right, so you have to join the room and then you'll be there. And the Sheetenhelms are back in first place. Nancy comes in second. Jeremy comes in third. Sir June, whatever his name is. I didn't catch fourth place. Sheetenhelms are quick on the button.
Surgeon. Get it?
Surgeon.
Surgeon. Surgeon.
I can change his name.
Say it again.
Jeremiah.
But it's July now, Jeremy.
All right, we're just waiting for folks to come back in. Lots of conversation there. So the Sheetenhelms made it back in on first place once again, followed by Nancy Dietrich with Jeremy Cracky bringing up third place. I didn't catch who fourth was. It was maybe like a 10-way tie. All right. All I got to say is I'm glad Mark is leading this part of the conversation. So, Mark.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. Well, we had a really good conversation in our group, and everyone expressed a desire for in-person gatherings. We were not all quite on the same page as to what that would look like or what that would mean, but there was definitely a desire for in-person gatherings. What sort of things did you share in your groups about how you're feeling about reopening? Let's hear from some folks.
Just go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll see you. Or you can raise your hand like they just did.
I can jump in. Gretchen elected me spokesperson. So, but I think pretty much, anxious to get back, wanting to do that. But also I know Kathy had mentioned about maybe starting out with outdoors, that seemed a little bit safer or just people might be more comfortable with that. That we should definitely do the, continue online to make sure that we can continue to include people who would not be as comfortable. We feel like everybody would want to help out. So the kind of cleaning efforts that it would take to try to keep people safe, we think people will all pitch in and do things that will help. And then I was joking with Gretchen about cleaning supplies. We have to make sure we have enough sanitizer and get on procuring all that good stuff.
All right.
Thank you, Nancy. Looks like Kay also had her hand raised. Their hand raised. Kay.
I mean, obviously, like our household is anxious to like get back and see everybody, but we're also the two that attend are immunocompromised. So if something were to happen, the two of us would probably be two of the first to die. And, that puts me also in a really kind of strange position because of my role with guest services. And knowing like how it would need to be set up in terms of guest services to offer anybody anything, if we offered anything at all in the cafe, having it like single point barista style, and trying to move people out so that they're not congregating as much in the same small spaces. But yeah, as spiritually and emotionally eager as I am to get back, logically, I know that is, even when we are ready to come back, it will be a bit before I can risk that, really.
Thank you, Kay. There we go. I see Thomas has raised his hand. Go ahead, Thomas.
For this group, one of the things pointed out was that there's trust in leadership because we really haven't done silly, rash things. Everything's kind of been thought through and discussed. So whatever the leadership comes up with and suggests, that their group figured that was leadership's got our best interest in mind. That temperature scans, that being important, social gathering, but whatever element it takes, that we would want a mix of remote, so if people want to join, it can still be, like through my work, if you can work remote, stay remote kind of a thing. So even if we have something that's in person, that component is also broadcast, so those folks aren't missing out. So it's not a one or the other, but it also relieves the pressure for those people that just can't, they can still participate. And then other cautions of, kids and that kind of thing. Just how what sort of steps does that go through to, that's obviously not right away, just because it's harder to, the controls around that kind of thing. That was it.
Thank you, Thomas. Miranda, it looks like you have your.
Did you say Miranda?
Miranda Menito, yes. You're muted right now, Miranda, but we'll.
Okay. I was in the breakout group with Tom Fox, and because both of our families have high-risk members, we are finding that this remote attending of church works well for us. Neither family wants to be exposed to anything, so we find that the remote option is good, and we should keep it for the time being.
Absolutely, thank you, Marilyn.
I'd like to say that Marilyn is facing a Tyrannosaurus Rex right behind her, so you might have bigger problems than COVID right over your shoulder there, Marilyn.
Yes. I see that there are a couple of other people who have their hands open, and the order on my screen, Sir Rated is first. And so go ahead, Jeremy, Mr. Sir.
I accidentally had my computer muted and was wondering if everyone could re-say what they were just saying.
Okay, we shouldn't have unmuted him, Tom. That was a mistake.
That was all he had to say.
That was it? Okay. Well, then let's go to Sean and Chrissy.
Well, first, Jeremy, I will say that Sean desperately misses you. So our group was kind of split. There are a couple of us who are really not comfortable with, jumping right in. And then there are some of us who are very anxious to get back to life. One thing that I had said was a concern was if we had all the best practices in place at the door. So if we had somebody doing temperatures, if we had somebody, with checklists and everything, that's great. But once you're in the door, people still have a varying degree of what they are comfortable with and what they're not. So there are those who, really want to keep that 6-foot distance. And then there are others who are like, oh no, I want to hug everybody. And I had said that I was talking to my uncle this past weekend, and their church has reopened, but they all wear stickers. So if you have a red sticker on your shirt, that means I do not want contact, please maintain a proper distance. If you have a green sticker, then you're more open to being a little bit closer to people. So I kind of thought that was an interesting idea, but I certainly would like to see a virtual option, if not permanent, at least be, prolonged in the same extent that we have it now.
Thank you, Chrissy. We have another hand raised from Rebecca and Kevin. Oh, and the whole family.
Yeah.
We can hear you. Oh, now you're muted again.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
It's really loud in our car because it just started pouring. But I'll just say really quickly, similar to what Chrissy had shared, our group was pretty split in terms of some people, I think, really ready to get back to worship, and others who are just, I think, feeling much more cautious. So pretty representative, I think, in our group of what others had shared, just people wanting to get back to worship, but really different in terms of how comfortable people feel.
Outside.
Yeah, and also, again, I think we heard this, but, outside worship being generally more something that people are probably more ready to embrace.
Thank you, Kevin and Rebecca. I see Megan has raised her hand.
I was just going to piggyback off that, being in their group, that like, I'm a teacher, so if I'm going back in person, I'm probably not going to come to worship in person because that's just too much. But if I'm teaching from home, then I would be ready to come to online or to in-person worship. So it kind of depends on how much I might be a conveyor of the virus.
Yes, thank you, Megan. We come from very different situations in home, with work, even just our views on all of this. And one of the challenges in reopening will be navigating all of that. I thank you all for your input. It may be one more person.
Mark, I have something to say.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the most cruel thing about COVID is that it spread most from singing. Like, I think that is just reprehensible, because I need a good live singing in my day. So, but thank you for continuing. Yes. Thank you for continuing to have the online option, and thank you for being so careful and open about this process. Yay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Are we going to give Aaron a solo in next week's worship service?
We should.
Well, probably not.
Okay. It's maybe as likely as me doing a solo.
Or me.
Well, I'm going to move us on to our next piece here, which is to hear from Bob Trout. Our Bob, is your camera and everything working? There we go. He's adjusting it for us.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, super.
Bob,
So,
give us an update on what we're seeing in the state and what we need to do to stay healthy.
super. Happy to. Just want to point out, I am in my den. It looks like a junk room, but it's very comfortable. I did put my crossover up here, so it looks like a religious area too. Basically, we are in the midst of it still. We had the U.S. continues to be a world leader as far as the number of cases. We fully have about a quarter of the cases that are occurring in the world. Michigan has, in the last couple of months, since I've started tracking it more on the end side of the curve that we kind of flattened, we've increased the number of cases by about 25,000. That's a huge number of people. That's about 400 new cases a day, and that is increasing. I see most of the records from the people that come through Sparrow that get tested, and we're running about 30 positive a day right now. So that's a lot of people, and that's increasing. That being said, we don't want to feel particularly good about just having 400 cases a day, even though Texas, for example, has had 260,000 more cases in the last 2 months versus our 25,000. They're doing really badly, but we still have to be very vigilant about what we're doing. For a couple of weeks, we didn't have anybody in the hospital at Sparrow with COVID. Now we've got about a dozen and a half right now. So it is on the uptick, and we still need to be real vigilant. Ingham County has about 1,300 cases, so those are increasing too. On a personal note, I went to a wedding last weekend. I went out. I thought everything was going really well. We went to my niece's wedding. Went to the church service. Very well orchestrated. It was very nice that we had the pews separated. I think everything went very well. Everybody had a mask on. It didn't have a receiving line. Everybody behaved very well in church, and I hope we can do that for ourselves. When we went to the reception, it just kind of broke loose. People got sloppy. There were kisses, hugs, all sorts of things. And now, just got a report yesterday by 2 of my brothers and a sister-in-law are being tested for COVID. So we have to keep up our guard wherever we are. So anyway, and we use wristbands there to say, please give me a hug, or please stay as far away as possible from me. So it was that's something we may be able to add and use, and it may be helpful if everybody follows the rules. So what do we do to keep in good shape until a vaccine is readily available and distributed to everybody? How do we get to some place where we have some herd immunity? There's some things that we all know, but really, I just read an article this morning about how masks really do help, and there's more and more research about that. I want to show you the mask that I wear at work. This is my mask. It's a surgical mask. It's a paper mask. It's well fitted. It does contain all the air on the way out. This is a very good mask, type of mask. There's different colors. These are great. People do make masks too. This is one my sister-in-law made. It's a cloth mask. It's double layer. It's really good. It is a little hard to breathe through, but it probably shows that it works. People that are wearing just a handkerchief over their face, not really super helpful. You can cough through this cloth fairly easily or sneeze. And so if you can do much better with a regular mask. There's only about a 50% efficiency using a cloth or a handkerchief. So keep that in mind, especially for your high risk group. We do in the hospital use a N95 mask. You don't need these. If you got them, you can use them, but it's really not necessary, not worth the money for people that are not around people that are at high risk for having the COVID. So if you get some of these other ones, the regular mask, that's going to be the easiest. This does keep you from spewing your gunk to somebody else, but it really does help protect your face from being spewed upon. Second thing to do is wash your hands very frequently. At the wedding, they gave us these were the party favors, a alcohol gel pump. Again, we did really well when we were at church. And when he got out, nobody used the pumps very much. People took off their masks. And so if you wash your hands frequently, this will help you so that when you invariably are going to touch your ear or pick your nose or scratch your face, you'll have less virus load on your hands. So it's the virus is pretty fragile in an environment. When it gets in the body, it's pretty hardy actually. But this will keep you as healthy as possible if you do that inadvertent touching your face. If you're sick, please stay home. If you're a little sick, please stay home too, or stay away from other people. We don't know at this point how much either asymptomatic people will do transfer the virus to people, or if pre-symptomatic, meaning you got COVID, you're not showing really big time symptoms yet, or hardly any at all, how much that's getting transmitted. So what if you do start having a little bit of illness? I know early on when COVID came on, I was supposed to talk at church. I walked into the cafe. Everybody said to me, "Go away." I kind of said, "No, I think I can do this." They said, "Go away," and I did, and I'm glad I did. So please stay away from folks as much as possible. Fourth, especially if you're not following the things above, stay your distance of 6 feet away from people. Even if you are masking, wash your hands and covering your face when you cough. Even with a mask on, covering your face with your elbow is really helpful to keep anything from coming out. But if you stay 6 feet away, you're going to be real helpful. The thought on this is that you have about globs of junk will come out of your nose or mouth to about 3 feet, maybe 6 feet at the most. But if you stay away, they're going to drop down. There's some thought that there's some airborne association with this. It's not clear how much it is, but we're looking still at the majority of the time people are getting coughed upon, people are or sneezed upon. The singing does happen as far as expelling things in long distance, yelling too. So if you're staying around away from people as much as possible, if you're not using the good techniques, that's the best. Nancy talked a little bit about cleaning the environment. Super important will be cleaning the environment at church, but clean your environment on a routine basis, or maybe a little more routine than you're used to. I'll work on that. But if you're sick, you want to clean it a lot more often. There is some supply and demand issues as far as getting enough Lysol or bleach or other types of solutions. but you do want to go ahead and clean routinely, real frequently if you're sick. If not, just clean once a day or as frequently as you feel comfortable. We don't want to hoard things either. But other things as far as the environment, there's no evidence yet as far as any transfer of virus from pets, food packages that get delivered, mosquitoes, ticks, on an ongoing basis. We have these case examples of things that might have occurred, but it's not a high risk situations with those. You probably all know the common symptoms that you want to look for if you do get sick: the chest pain, cough, fever, chills, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, sore throat, all that stuff changes in your sense of smell. All that stuff, if you start getting those things, monitor that, take your temperature, and do the best you can as far as stay away from people. Talk to your doctor. They probably won't want to have you come in. They may have you get tested. So if you're older, and you can decide what that means, or if you've got chronic health conditions, you like Kay mentioned, you do want to go ahead and be super careful. Folks with chronic conditions, if they do get COVID, it tends to be worse, and they tend to not do as well. Take a lot more effort to get better. A couple more things: if you do think you are exposed, if you are exposed, or if you think you're exposed, or you start getting symptoms, it's good to go ahead and get tested. If you're not exposed, or you did get exposed and you're not having symptoms, you may not actually get it. The amount of testing materials that we have these days is limited. Sparrow, for example, last week was getting about 1,200 test kits a day. That's been decreased by 75%. So now there's only about 300 test kits a day being provided. Those resources are being pushed off to the southern states, where we have way more of a prevalence of the disease, and it's increasing more. So if you do get tested, be patient. Stay at home. Have somebody drop off some chicken soup on your front porch so you can stay home and get better. Last thing, a little bit about, I get questions about antibody testing. With that, if you want to get tested for antibodies, your doctor may ask you for that, and that's fine. It does help with research and things, and it helps with determining what the general population is. It may help your doctor decide actually whether you've had COVID or not, and then go on some other avenues as far as trying to figure out what your diagnosis is. But it's not just something to do to be curious, and there's really not much that we use it for from a perspective of putting people in isolation or not, or what we should do with treatment. So anyway, I'm available for questions. Happy to help out. Be smart, stay healthy.
We're going to save the questions until after Mark and I share what we're thinking of with draft plans for reopening on a limited basis.
Super.
So what Mark and I are going to share right now has been in consultation with Bob and Nancy Dietrich. Nancy is on the team for Lansing Community College that is working on reopening, so she's kind of in the thick of it there. Really, these are really rough draft plans. We shared with you before, like kind of a step structure, the way that the governor's plans work, like phase 1, phase 2. We're currently in phase 4, but things are going up, and I've heard she's saying if they keep going up, we might go back to phase 3, in which case all these plans that Mark and I are about to share are null and void. But we have enjoyed, as Chrissy Brokenshire shared, having combined service in July. But in August, we're planning to go back to our kind of normal separate campuses. That's a decision. That's a missional decision in the sense that we think that the mission fields are a little bit different. Like, it's been good in July to gather together, and it's a slow month. But missionally, our campuses need some different things. And the people around our campuses especially need a little different thing than we can make work across the whole spectrum. So in August, we're going to go back to separate worship services or multiple worship services. at South Lansing, what we are looking at doing is we're looking at the first stage being that those of us who are, quote, on the stage, or that you would normally see in the video on the screen, that we would be in the cafe, broadcasting live from the cafe. There's the tech team and media team, and Jeremy and I are meeting on Monday to kind of walk through that, looking at the cafe and how we might fit that together. We have again talked with Bob and Nancy about this, and worked on these plans. As Aaron Umstead said, singing is a challenge, but in a limited capacity, we think that one person singing up front, one voice, is not a significant risk factor. So we may have one person like Jeremy or Kevin singing one song. And at the South Lansing campus, we can open the windows in the cafe. Once we got that under our belt at the cafe, kind of figuring that out, and making sure that everybody kind of stays in their separate spaces, we would begin to do, again, this is at South Lansing, we would do like a 10-person sign up. So there's kind of a live studio audience, so to speak, of maybe 10 people, maybe 15. We're not quite sure about how that'll work out. But as we move towards that, there wouldn't be any hospitality, no children's anything. So if you came with your kids, you would have to sit as a family unit. I think Bob's reflection that the wedding itself, like in a structured setting where there's clear kind of structure set up and there's somebody who's clearly in charge of the space. And we've seen this at least at our outdoor parties, that when that sort of structure is provided from up front, people follow it. And as Bob reminded us, they're in the hospital every day and they learn how to interact with each other in a healthy way. And we think that we can manage that on that limited basis. So this is not a throwing the doors open. It's again, at South Lansing, it's a step from broadcasting live with those on the stage to having a limited studio audience, so to speak. So you would be able to, we'd create a sign-up system for that. No children, no hospitality. And then there wouldn't be any mingling afterwards. Indoors, we would head out to the patio for socially distant mingling outside, which outside opens up the space. We would continue to broadcast that live, so the online option. In fact, we think we can do a better quality if we're all in the same room. Now, somebody gets a temperature, somebody gets sick, I get a cough, and then the whole thing is off on a Sunday morning and we're back to me coughing at you from the screen. I think that again, these are sort of rough blueprints. We're exploring this for August. Mark, you want to talk about the specifics of Potterville and what you're thinking about for that?
Yes, I'm happy to talk about that. So in Potterville, our situation is a little bit different in that we don't have very reliable internet at the church. And so we will continue to pre-record our service and have it released online while also exploring online options. And after talking about it a bit with Kevin, we're interested in starting to have an outdoor worship service for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is that generally most people are more comfortable outdoors to start with. We'd like to kind of get a sense of how many people are interested in an outdoor worship service or in an in-person worship service. And if we were to move inside at some point, we are limited to about 40-ish people in the sanctuary in Potterville. And so we're less limited outside than we are in our sanctuary. The other reason for exploring an outdoor worship service is missional, in that we'd love to have people see us gather. When we're inside our building, no one sees us that we're gathered and that we're worshiping together. When we are gathered outside and we're worshiping together, our neighbors and people driving by and walking by see us and see that we are a church that's meeting together to gather for worship. We're still figuring out all of that and how that would look. I think any plans that we're making right now, I'm holding to very loosely. But in Potterville, we've had a really successful gatherings with our yard parties. And we think that extending that to an outdoor worship service is a logical next step toward reopening and meeting more in person.
All right. So there you've heard what Bob has said. You've heard kind of some draft plans there that Mark and I have shared. And now this is just an open time for question and answer. Gretchen has patiently had her digital hand up.
Yes.
Isn't it great to have the digital hand so you don't have to tire with your arm up like this? You don't need a Joshua. So Gretchen, and if you can raise your digital hand, or if you just unmute yourself, you come to the top of our participant screen and we see you. So Gretchen, what question did you have?
My question is for Bob. And when Bob was sharing, he talked about 30 new cases a day. And I was curious if that was like at Sparrow and Lansing, or if that was like a broader area, or what that was. I was a little confused.
Okay, so the Sparrow acts as a collection center for the Tri-County area, and for sometimes for people outside the area. So it's looking mostly at Clinton and Ingham and the other county. But Eaton, yes. So we're looking at those three counties, and pretty much right around here. So not everybody gets admitted. Most everybody stays home. And I don't know the denominator as of the last few days, how many people are getting tested either. So, but it's just around the area. Sometimes we do go out to Marshall. We get input from Marshall or from Oak Lawn Hospital, but most of them are from just right around here.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? You can, again, raise your hand or just unmute yourself, and we'll see you pop to the top of our participants screen.
As you're looking for that, for people who have questions, so just to clarify what we're thinking in Potterville, we would continue to release our online worship at 9:30 a.m. and then our in-person outdoor service would be at 11 a.m. And we're thinking about starting that sometime in mid-August, like August 9 or August 16.
Okay. Mark, everybody's being digitally quiet.
They are. I'm not seeing any hands.
No.
Or digital hands. That must mean it was super clear, or it was so unclear that not anything.
No, Lori's here, so. Lori?
But thanks. My screen changed. I had to figure out how to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I was thinking, I really like the idea of having a full outdoor worship at Potterville. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool? I know this is, an expense, but maybe somebody already has an idea or some options, but I thought it'd be really cool to have a trailer set up with whatever is needed and for sound equipment, and that could just be kind of opened up like a little, I don't know if it's a pull behind trailer or what it is, so that if anywhere you wanted to be mobile now or in the future, you could just, pull up the trailer and pull out the speakers, and, it'd be less work for whoever was doing it. I mean, if that's something that, you could take anywhere with you, you could take it to any event or anything like that. I thought that would help. And then as far as indoor worship goes, I know in the dentist office, we have a lot of filtration, like air filtration. So I don't know if that's something that might be helpful indoors.
Thank you, Lori.
We actually do have a trailer. It's our church in a pub trailer, and it's parked behind Buddy's right now. And this might be a good time to just share a little bit that we don't have any plans to reopen church in a pub. In fact, we're redirecting resources from church in a pub to other places, or at least we're freeing those up. And we are we don't see church in a pub opening anytime soon. And when it does reopen, I think one of the things that Bob said that he didn't say here, but he said the other night when we were meeting to talk about all this, he said, you really have to plan. This is a year that we're in. This doesn't go away in the next couple months. And if we slide back into 3, then all of a sudden, there's you're just takeout in restaurants, back into phase 3 of the governor's reopening plan. There's only takeout. So if we in the future decided to restart the pub, it's probably a relaunch, almost like you're starting something brand new again. So that's gonna, we're making the decision not to put any resources in that direction for at least the foreseeable future. Yeah, Sean or Chrissy.
Yeah, just a quick question. One of the points you had brought up about when South Lansing goes to in-person with like an audience or whatever, if you or somebody else on the team ends up being positive, everybody has to quarantine, what kind of notifications will there be? If like, oh no, we're scheduled to meet on Sunday, but no, now we're not, we can't, it's gonna be only virtual.
Sure.
What are the steps kind of built in for that?
Well, I think what would, the way that we were thinking about it at South Lansing is we would have a sign up. So if, say, for example, there were 10 spots over the 4 weekends, and you could get to sign up for one of those weeks. So first of all, we would know who was coming, who had planned to come to begin with. The other possibility of that is that if you look there on Sunday morning and there weren't 10 people signed up, then you could come. But 10 people is a manageable number of people. And I guess another piece, like along those lines, while I'm talking about that, what we were thinking of was Nancy and Bob would be with us in that space. And when I went to the zoo, Potter Park Zoo, with my kids, there was actually like a host that greeted you before you even got to the ticket booth. And they explained the social distancing expectations as you came into the zoo. So we would have somebody who greeted you outside before you even got into the building and explained, like, here's the traffic pattern, here's what we're asking you to do and not do, yada, yada. But as far as like, if for example, I wake up on Sunday morning and I've got a cough and we have to cancel live, it would, or I should say, we'd have to cancel it in the cafe. We'd still have worship, and it would be at the same exact time, which we're thinking staying at 9:30 at least for the time being. We would have those sign-ups of people who were those 10 people who had said they were going to come, and we could easily contact them. Everybody else who was planning to worship that morning, it would all be the same. Like they just know that they were getting on at 9:30 on Facebook or YouTube. We are exploring some different options technologically, where when we go back to broadcasting live, we can make it more like or broadcasting all in the same room. We can make it more like a studio with multiple cameras in the studio, and that allows us to do some things as far as the quality and creativity there, and kind of the natural flow and banter in a worship service. And so the way we're using Zoom right now in worship is it's kind of like creating it like a multi video studio room, which is not what Zoom was created to do. We just have sort of it's like our Zoom hack to do that. So we wouldn't actually need Zoom anymore, but we would still like to broadcast to both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Most people are on Facebook, but not everybody is. And Facebook is really where we've built our community at. But for those who liked Zoom and for whatever reason didn't want to get into Facebook or didn't want to worship in that way, there are a couple of options out there that we're exploring that you broadcast to that website, and that website then shoots it off to YouTube and Facebook at the same time, which actually will make it, on the back end, we do some things like to post it to Facebook later, and we have to record it, and it actually make that whole process easier. That was more than you asked, Chrissy, but nobody's raising their hand, so I just kept talking. I feel like with the sign up, it'd be pretty easy to communicate with people that we're not meeting. Stay home. There could be also, like, if, for example, Jeremy didn't feel well. Well, I don't know. You know, this is like a bit where it's a little gray. I'd probably have to talk to Bob. But if Jeremy wasn't feeling well, or if one of us wasn't feeling well, would we just need to stop, all of us? Or if we had made, like, we're going to still be creating some music videos that we're showing live, and part of the quality of what I just described is that they'll stream better than they stream through Zoom. They're a little choppy, like live videos are a little choppy in Zoom, and like the way that Potterville is doing pre-recorded, those videos are run super smooth, and we're looking at a technological solution that allows us for the videos to run smooth as South Lansing, and also for it to be live at the same time. So any other questions, comments, eggs you want to throw, digital eggs? Mark, nobody's raising their hand. I'm going to assume that we've at least created a basic draft idea that like what we're trying to do. You know, the things that you all shared here, we wanted to hear them, but we've been hearing them from you. We haven't heard them all together as a group, so we wanted you all to hear each other. But we've been hearing these for a long time, and we're trying to craft a way that that connects with the needs of a broad spectrum of people, but also to do it in a way that's missional. I mean, the church is not just about us connecting with each other, it's also connecting externally. So we think that what we've just outlined allows us to do both of those things in our respective mission fields at Potterville and Lansing. All right, I'm going to, we're kind of on the, well, Mark, is there anything you want to add to that before we?
I just want to again say thank you all for being here and for your input. Again, Tom and I meet all the time in our houses, and it's really helpful to see a lot of your faces and to hear from all of you and to have this many people gathered together. And we wouldn't be a church without this core group of people who are here right now. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah. All right, let me share just a couple of things. And one is that these are calendar things. I'm actually going to cut and paste these into the chat here so that you have them. They were on the agenda, which I also shared in the chat earlier on. But let's see. Just some upcoming dates that you want to be aware of. Annual conference, that's the big statewide gathering. It's usually in end of May, beginning of June. It's moving digitally and it's online July 26th to the 28th. August, we're looking again, like I said, back to campus specific worship services, whatever form those take, online or a hybrid. This September 5th and 6th, camp out and worship at Sleepy Hollow. If you weren't on at the very beginning when we were just chatting, this was something that we had planned. Like, we try to plan a church-wide event, all campus event on Labor Day weekend. It's a slow weekend anyway, so let's combine 4 smaller worship services into one. I guess it's 3 because we keep the traditional service at Potterville, but 3 smaller services into one. And we had thought about camping together Saturday night of Labor Day weekend and then worshiping at Sleepy Hollow. And that allows people to camp if they want to, or drive up, because Sleepy Hollow's, even from Potterville, it's only 25 minutes away. Our initial survey on Facebook showed a considerable willingness of people to either camp out or to just show up for worship. That we would, again, have a very structured setting. It's outdoors, so the risk is less, but we would require social distancing and so on. We're still exploring whether we're going to do that or not. But September 5th and 6th, you can at least pencil that in on your calendar. If you're a key leader, which a lot of you are, we are going to have a September 22nd key leader meeting. Actually, it says at Potterville that it would be online. In October, we're starting a new series called Long Story Short. We're going to go through the Bible in 6 weeks. And our church-wide small group campaign is going to be a 90-day New Testament challenge. So all of our small groups are going to be reading through the New Testament in 90 days. So will you do the challenge with us? Mark and I and a team are working on then creating some resources around that, regular devotionals, both written and video, and a podcast around that in the fall, that 90-day New Testament challenge. We're super excited about it. We planned this a year ago, but Mark, the more that I think about it, the more perfect I think this particular campaign for this particular year is all of our church reading the New Testament together over 90 days. It's both individual and then we're aiming at having a small group every day of the week. So if you want to do it individually, you can. If you want to join in a small group online, you can do it that way. By the way, some small groups, like a small group that I'm in, we do meet. We just meet outside and we meet 6 feet apart. And all of us have kids, and we really enforce the kids being 6 feet apart too, and we've done really well. So of course, by the time you get to October, it may be a little chilly for that, but that's at least one aspect of small groups for us. October 24th is the Reach Summit, and that's that's the annual event that I lead with a bunch of other churches for helping churches grow and multiply. It's usually a 2-day event in person, but this year it's going to be a 1-day event on Saturday online. I should say as well, I want to highlight something that's not on here. I'm just realizing Mark and the staff and I are starting to join a network group in August. That's a 12-week network group called a Phygital cohort. Phygital is physical and digital together. And it's a group, a church planning network called Stadia Church Planning. It's not United Methodist, it's an independent church planning network. And they have been planting digital-only churches for several years now. That is to say, churches that don't have a physical footprint. And as they also plant physical churches, but they're offering this new learning event for 3 months, once a week, 12 weeks, about how physical churches can also do digital ministry. So a Phygital church. It's kind of a silly word. It grows on you over time, but at first you're like, what is that word? Anyway, that's we're going to go into a deep dive. This digital stuff isn't going anywhere. And we're looking forward to working with other churches and experts and churches that are way further along on the digital ministry path than we are. Yes. All right. If you've been around Sycamore Creek at all, you know that we like to debrief on things. We say something's not over till we debrief on it. Worship won't be over till our team debriefs on it tomorrow. So we like to say, this meeting isn't over till we take some time to check out. And let's not check out mentally. But you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself, or if you want to type in the chat section something that went well. We always start with celebration. So before you throw your tomatoes, what went well in this meeting today? Again, you can raise your hand or you can type something in. Gretchen?
There were a lot of people. It's good to see people's faces, and it's good to know that the information is getting out there.
Yeah, we should have digital town halls instead of digital cafes every Sunday. Sarah Lepley says, thankful for the breakout time and good breakout groups that worked well. That is a feature that I really like of Zoom, is being able to break into those small groups. Aaron Umstead says the flow of the meeting was pleasant and smooth. Breakouts were great. Anything else that went well? Good information about the plan. I got to tell you, sort of along those lines, I just really appreciate Bob Trout. and on a lot of levels, Mark as well. Between Bob and Mark's science background and Nancy's experience in trying to help an institution, a large educational institution, I'm really relying on them. There was no training in pandemics in seminary, so I'm just really grateful for their expertise. Yeah. Lots of comments coming in of things that went well. Bob, lots of dittos on Bob. Thought out, organized well for involvement, distribution of information, creative thinking and problem solving, appreciating the science. Yeah. It's good to have a scientist on staff, isn't it? Hardcore. Actually, I'm a scientist too, but it was soft science is what Mark calls psychology. All right, so you can keep sharing. We love the props. If there's something that could have been improved, was missing or confusing, you can type it in the comments, or you can raise your hand and share with us. Bob's sense of humor has been missed. It was actually pretty light, and it was kind of subtle on display there. I loved his quote den, man cave, with the metal things. Oh, Patricia Alderman reminded us that CORE, our Congregations Organizing for Racial Reconciliation, does an anti-racism workshop in the fall, and we will be moving that to online September 10th and through the 12th. So it still will be a 2.5-day workshop online. So there's no better time to get into the anti-racist work than right now, which is true all the time, but it's especially in our consciousness. Gretchen, did you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I had at least one person messaging me on Facebook saying that the link wasn't working for them.
Huh.
So I don't know what's up with that. I tried to help them.
Okay.
I thought they were here for a minute, but, and then the other thing for me, and I know I get it, but I would like to see people's faces instead of their name. I got dressed this morning straight out of bed just so I could be in church and not look like a mess. Just saying.
I did shower this morning too. I was tempted not to shower and shave, but because we were recording it, I decided to.
Right.
Somebody mentions glad it's being recorded. Yeah, so we will upload it to YouTube. It'll take us a little bit because once we shut down Zoom, it takes a while for it to convert and get up. Then upload it and so on. But anything else that needed room for improvement, missing or confusing?
I want so badly to say like there were no snacks, but we're not. We're at home.
It would be greatly improved with Shelly Mole's brownies.
Amen. Amen.
Mike and Denise Duvall doing I don't know, something in the crock pot, like little. Those like little wiener things or whatever, Swedish meatballs. That would have made this much better. All right, Mark, I'm not seeing a lot of room for improvement in the notes or comments. So maybe, I feel like maybe we knocked this out of the ballpark. Woo, woo, thank you, God. You got the last word and prayer.
Okay. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. I really appreciate all of you being here and for hearing your perspectives. I'm super excited about the digital options that we'll continue to offer and the ways that we're exploring creatively meeting in person at each campus. Will you join me in praying for the mission of our church and that we would continue through the things that we're doing? God, we thank you for Sycamore Creek Church. We thank you for Barb and the team of people who started Sycamore Creek Church 20 years ago. And we thank you that in the midst of a pandemic, the mission of our church to ignite authentic life in Christ and fan it into an all-consuming flame, it continues. God, I thank you for all the people who are here, who are in on that mission and are excited and passionate about following you. I pray that we would continue to share that passion with each other, with our neighbors, with our coworkers, with our community. There are so many people who need to hear about Jesus. Help us to notice them and to be your hands and feet and to show your love, God, to the people around us. Empower us through your Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Look at that, Mark. It's 12:14. We're like done a minute early. All right. Well, hey, it's great to see everybody. Peace out.
It's good to see you all. Bye,
I'm
everyone.
gonna unmute everybody so you can all say woo woo. Bye.
Got it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good to see everyone. Thanks, Bob, for all your help.
See you later.
Bye, Tom. Bye, everybody.
Watch out for that
Bob, you
T-Rex,
need to
Marilyn.
reorganize our den.
Watch out for that team.
Oh, I have Miranda and Joe here to help me defend myself.
Okay.
Hey, thanks. Good to see everybody. I have to check out.
Good to see
Bye.
you. Bye, Julie and Vince.
Bye, Mark.
See ya,
Tom.
Kamalas.